Senate, I rise in opposition to Senate Amendment 5310 to Amendment 5302, which makes an unamendable amendment. One of the amendments that will be ruled out of order as a result of the passage of this amendment is my Amendment 5315, and I'd like to spend a moment or two to talk a little bit about this. This is the secret GOP tax increase on Iowans. This is going to cost Iowans $66.7 million for services that they're already buying and not being taxed on. For example, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, many of the phone applications that you use on your phone, ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft, digital subscription services, goods from online sellers and online marketplaces, taxi cabs, and various other websites. So in 2019, you're going to take $66.7 million away from working Iowans, and you're going to give that money to the richest 3%. The bulk of the money will go to the richest 3%. In fiscal year 20, that number grows from $66 million a year to $140 million a year. And by 2021, to $151 million a year. So you're raising taxes today, senators. I want you to understand this. You are raising taxes in an effort to cut taxes for the richest 3% of Iowans and wealthy corporations and out-of-state individuals that you're going to be spending more than 7% of this tax cut to send out of state. This plan that you proposed, how will this plan impact average Iowans? Well, for average Iowans, they're going to pay more for their Netflix subscription, and sometimes those Iowans are the only individuals. Entertainment is the Netflix subscription. So you're going to take one more thing away from them and raise taxes on them. The GOP plan does not make the tax system fair for working families and small business. Half of these tax cuts are going to go to Iowans that make more than $250,000 a year. 25% of Iowans, imagine that, 25% of the souls in Iowa will see no benefit from the tax cut plan in 2021. Iowa taxpayers earning under $200,000 will get an average of $129 a year. I'm going to repeat that. Iowa taxpayers earning under $200,000, which is most of Iowa taxpayers, are going to average $137 a year from this tax cut. I guarantee you they're going to pay more in your secret hidden tax than they'll get back in this phony income tax cut. They're going to pay more for their digital services than they'll get back from your phony income tax. You're raising taxes on Iowans earning less than $200,000 a year today. I hope Iowa understands that. The vast majority of Iowans who earn under $200,000 are going to pay more taxes as a result of the actions that you are taking today. You talk about a hand in sleight hand. It's a shell game. You're trying to fool the taxpayers. You're trying to cheat the taxpayers with this plan. You are cheating the middle class. Those earning under $200,000 a year, you're you're giving them nothing. You're costing them more. This plan, in my opinion, this GOP plan is a deliberate attempt by Republicans to cut or flatline public education, healthcare services, job creation, and public safety, raising taxes on property taxpayers in our communities, because most of our communities are going to need to rely on, a lot of your communities are going to rely on budget guarantees and have to raise property taxes to fund education. Also, that we can pay for big tax breaks for the richest Iowans and the biggest corporations, and a lot of non-Iowans that we're going to be sending our money to. A lot of non-Iowa people that we're going to be sending our Iowa money to. This is a bad deal for the majority of Iowans. You are passing a bad deal for the majority of Iowans. This plan has not been well thought out. It has not been done in the light of day. And bringing an unamendable amendment today just shows how willing you are to go for the richest 3% of Iowans. These tax cuts will have a devastating impact on our ability to fund and to actually provide the 127,000 new Iowans that are needed for upgraded skills in the workforce. This plan today will devastate higher education, including community colleges, and make student debt increase, because we will have less dollars to provide needed resources for our community colleges and our region institutions. And more student debt will drive students out of Iowa, where higher paying jobs will be found out of state, only exacerbating what is a major workforce shortage in the state of Iowa. This bill reduces the general fund by over $100 million in FY19. And I want to remind Iowans that we started out the year having to cut the budget, first of all, by $144 million, and then we did mid-year cuts, and then we did more cuts after raiding the rainy day fund. And we saw status quo budgets this year for human services. We didn't have money to provide more DHS inspectors to go out and keep kids safe in the state of Iowa in our foster and adoptive system. So we'll have more Natalie Finns and more Sabrina Rays as a result of not having the resources for human services. We've effectively locked ourselves in now as a result of the GOP plan to more cuts, more raid on the rainy day fund. How long do you think it'll take us to go through the rainy day fund and the reserve accounts? You know, we once had about $1 billion in that fund. Every time Kim Reynolds dips into the rainy day fund to meet today's obligations, we have fewer dollars that we can rely on during a real economic crisis, one like the Trump administration is bringing us through their tariffs, and what we expect to be some pretty devastating results to our farm economy. So that we're not even prepared for. We actually have been cutting our budgets and dipping into the rainy day fund to pay for needed services during what is considered an economic growth time period. I've been around here when we've been in a farm crisis. What's this budget plan going to do for when the farm crisis strikes, Senator Feenstra? What's this going to do to the state of Iowa when the farm crisis strikes? It's just a matter of time. We know it. China's not going to buy any more of our soybeans. How about pork? They're not going to buy any more of our pork. The hubris of cutting taxes at the same time that you're, in effect, underfunding education, spending the rainy day fund money, putting money on the credit card, and cutting budgets and cutting public education and cutting support for human services. It's amazing to me to give the richest 3%, 55% of this cut. 25% of Iowans aren't going to see anything, and the remainder are going to just see a minuscule amount. You're raising taxes on average Iowans on their entertainment so that you can ship this money out of state. This is a bad idea, ladies and gentlemen. This is a terrible way to leave the session. I didn't think it could get any worse after you decided to pass the HHS budget, what essentially was a status quo budget. I didn't think it could get any worse. But you guys have found reverse on the Buick, and you're going to back over Iowans one more time. You've run over them once, and now you're going to back over them. I cannot believe how bad Iowans are getting screwed this session by this legislature. Average, hardworking Iowans are getting screwed again. This fits right into the Koch brothers model. This is what those wealthy individuals that invested in all your campaigns are asking for. So their number one priority is income tax cuts for the richest Iowans, richest Americans. This is the Paul Ryan plan that 68% of Americans think is a bad deal. 68% of Americans think that the tax cut plan that Congress just passed is a bad deal. This is just a mere program of what they just passed. The only thing we didn't do was borrow the money from the Chinese, like Paul Ryan, to fund the program. You guys are taking it out of the rainy day fund. You guys are gonna take us down the road of Kansas. You're gonna take us down the road of Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a 4-day school week right now. Their chamber is raising money in Oklahoma right now to raise taxes so that they can get their schools open 5 days a week. What do you think this is going to do to your rural schools in rural Iowa? How do you think this is going to impact once those budget guarantees kick in and you have to raise property taxes? It's going to have a devastating impact on your communities. Kansas, Oklahoma, they all tried it. We just have to look at their plans and see what they've done. They've bankrupted their states. They have bankrupted their states. And you have strapped us on to a bobsled for bankruptcy. And we're following Oklahoma, and we're following Kansas, and we can't get there fast enough. Elections have consequences. People of Iowa put you in charge of the state, and you're not done yet. But we're one step closer today with the passage of your bill. We're one step closer to bankruptcy. But first we gotta blow the rest of the remaining funds in the reserve accounts. And we'll do that with the passage of this. We'll have $100 million less next year to work with, and even less the following year, to eventually full implementation, $1 billion less, and Iowans will be stuck holding the bag. And when we're bankrupt and we can't fund our schools, we'll have to raise taxes again. And I guarantee you, it'll be the middle class once again, holding the bag, stepping up to pay, so that the richest 3% can get the biggest benefits from your plan. Shameful. This is a bad bill. This is a terrible amendment, and I urge the body to defeat this measure.